Hey guys, what's going on? It's Ash here coming at you today in Clash Royale. Today we are going to endeavor to rank every single card inside the game here on June 1st, 2021. Can't believe this game has been out for 5.5 years. Is that insane or is that insane? Anybody else, any OGs here, been playing or watching the channel since day one of beta? It's crazy how fast time goes by. So we've seen a lot of cards enter and exit into the meta. We're going to talk about all the cards in the game in today's video. You guys can go ahead and tier list your own cards as well and tweet me at CWA and share your list with me. I'll have a link to this website so you guys can go ahead and share your ranks as well. So we're going to start out with Elite Barbarians, guys, and I will warn you guys, I'm a pretty harsh judge. I'm a pretty harsh critic, with the exception of Elite Barbarians. S tier, OP. I do think the E-Barbs are a little bit on the strong side, to say the least right now. They have over a 20% use rate. That's insane for a non-win condition, especially. They've really appeared in every single archetype and every single deck. I do think they need a very small nerf. Baby D is really good. I'm starting this out with like some really good rankings because truthfully, I think that Baby Dragon's one of the better cards in the game. I really do mean that. Maybe not the sexiest, newest card in the game, but definitely a very, very effective air splashing unit. There's not that many air splashing units. Skeleton Dragons and Baby Dragon, I do think that Baby Dragon's the better of the two. Archers, I think, are just average right now. Arrows, being able to kill archers now, and now with more arrows going around, I do feel like archers took a little bit of a backseat. I would have, formerly ranked them maybe above average, maybe even really good in their heyday, no pun intended. Sticking to Clash Royale in this video, I'm gonna rank heyday vegetables for you guys next. Stay tuned for that video. It's gonna be exciting. Let's go on. We have the Bandit. I think the Bandit is above average right now. Not as strong as she's been in the past, but not as weak as she's been in the past as well. I think she's good in spam decks primarily. I'm gonna say Barbarian Hut is it's either average or bad. I guess I'm just gonna go ahead and say average because I don't want bad to connotate it needs a buff. I don't think it needs a buff. I just think it's just not that great. Now that there's less Earthquake going around, that prevents me from ranking it into D tier in really bad, but it's still not a great card. Barbarians are a little bit above average, being used widely in Lava Hound decks as kind of one of the two ground cards being used in Lava Hound decks, especially with less Tombstone going around because of all the Mother Witch. However, Mega Knight will ruin your dreams, and they're not very effective against Electro Giant. Actually, I'm going to call them average because of all the Electro Giant going on out there. Have you ever tried to surround Electro Giant with Barbarians? They melt away. They're not a useless card, however, they're kind of niche right now inside the meta. Barbarrel is really, really good, one of the best spells inside the meta right now. Bats are not as good as they used to be. I'm going to call them average now, mainly due to Mother Witch. Very, very, very strong, a dominant force in the meta. All Swarm cards are taking a little bit of a backseat because of her. The Battle Healer, I think she's kind of bad right now. Elixir Golem's never had worse win and use rates inside the entire game. That goes the same on ladder and grand challenges. And really, Battle Healer complements Elixir Golem really, really well. And that's pretty much the only archetype she's been able to find herself a home in. So because of that, I think she's pretty bad right now. I don't know anybody who runs the Battle Healer in non-Elixir Golem decks, and not many people are having success with Elixir Golem decks right now. I don't think I'm calling for a huge buff to her. I don't know. Maybe a rework. Battle Ram, I think, is above average. Again, always finds a nice home in Pekka Bridge Spam and in Bridge Spam decks in general, but it has been better when that archetype has been a little bit better inside the meta. Dark Goblin is going to be above average. The little fella's always been above average. He's never been OP in my mind, and he's never been just average or bad. He's always kind of tried and true. Again, solid air defender. He's like a machine gun with that Dark Goblin, man, with that darts coming out of his mouth. Definitely a very, very cool card, one of my favorites. Bomber is really good right now. Only 2 Elixir, that's not updated, by the way, 3 Elixir. Bomber being only 2 Elixir is really insane in terms of the value you can get. We're seeing pro players even start just cycling Bombers at the bridge as a starting play. I never thought I'd see the day. Granted, that's a little bit of an outlier, but still, for 2 Elixir, you really can't go wrong on getting that much splash damage that has to be responded to. Oftentimes baiting out more expensive spells as well. Bomber, if you slept on him, take a look. He's really good right now. Bomb Tower is just average right now. Bowler is, I'm going to say a little bit above average right now. I think people are sleeping on the bowler, and I think the bowler is pretty good inside this meta with elite barbarians running everywhere. I still think that the pump is a bad card overall, especially since it can't appear in your starting hand. I know that I'm in the minority on this one, but I've never been afraid to share unpopular opinions. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of stuff that you guys disagree with in this video. Trust me, I'm sure I'll hear from you guys in the comments on a bunch of these cards. But the pump, man, I disagree that the pump is the only card that can't be in your starting hand. It's a weird kind of exception to every other rule in the game. Is it bad for the game when it can be in your starting hand? Maybe. I'm just saying that I don't like it has its own separate rule, and I think it's a bad card in general. Can you use some decks with it? Golem and Three Musketeers? Sure. Inferno Tower right now is just average, mainly overshadowed by another defensive unit that we're going to talk about in just a second. I think that Mortar right now is... it's average or above average, guys. It's not really good. There's that one Mortar deck going on right now, the Elite Barbarian Mortar deck that's being used pretty widely. Mortar usually used as a secondary win condition or a complementary win condition along with another card. And for those reasons, I think that it's average right now. It's not trash. It's good. You can make an argument that it belongs in above average, but it's not the strongest win condition. It's certainly not a Mortar meta, but it's doing better than it was when Earthquake was everywhere. Tesla's going to be my second S-tier OP card because of the overall power of Tesla right now inside the game. It's going to push a lot of the other structures and defensive units a little bit down on my list, such as the Inferno Tower, which is still a decent card, but Tesla is so incredibly good. We're seeing decks that used to run the Inferno Tower like Logbait now just pretty much universally switch to the Tesla. Tesla can really chop down any tank right now inside the game. It just deals so much damage and has a very fast fire rate as well. Expo right now inside the game, I'm going to go ahead and call it average, above average. Siege right now has been better, but it's been worse too, right? So we're seeing less Royal Giant, which is generally good for Siege, even though a Royal Giant doesn't necessarily mean that they have the matchup advantage, but still for for everyday casual players like me, right, non-pros, I think that generally speaking, you know, Expo and Mortar, they've been better, they've been worse. I think that Expo is still slightly above average. People who play Expo still win with Expo, right? And that's what we've always seen with Expo. It always has relatively high win rates and relatively low use rates. That tells me that generally speaking, even though people, you know, will disagree with this, it's a pretty high skill deck and you have to play it a lot and really learn it, and then you can have success no matter the meta. But Golem is really popular right now, so for that reason, we're going to keep it out of the really good or OP territory. It's more of an average card. You could even make the case because of so much Golem that is average. Cannon Cart is actually really, really good, on the borderline of being S tier right now inside the game. Very, very good card. When they made it slower, they actually gave it a pretty substantial buff. Cannon right now, I think is bad. It's really only being played in 2.6, and for one more elixir, you can get one of the best defensive units in the game. Balloon right now, trying to pick up the pace a little bit or we'll be here all day. Balloon is above average, definitely a very, very solid win condition, both in Balloon Cycle with Lumberjack and Balloon Cycle with Miner, and of course in Lava Loon. Golem right now is actually really good. Golem, shockingly, is seeing the highest win rates on ladder than it has in a long, long time. Same thing with Grand Challenges. Golem right now is a very, very good win condition to the ire of many a player, and of course, a lot of Golem players are really happy right now. I'm one of them. I've had a lot of success with Golem in the last few weeks especially. The Witch right now is just bad. I think she needs another buff or another rework. She's just a bad card right now, especially with Mother Witch. Now, can you see success with Witch? I see some niche decks and niche scenarios surprising your opponent with Witch, and I think you can say that about all the average or bad cards on our list so far. That it doesn't mean that you can't use them and still have success, because sometimes when you use off-meta cards, bad or average cards on my tier list, well, you can surprise your opponent. They're not used to playing against witches, and sometimes you can overpower them and take them by a surprise as well. So Clone, I think, is just average right now. There is Golem, because there's a lot of Golem, there is some Golem Clone going around, some Lava Hound Clone, a little bit less of that. I think the Dark Prince is really, really good right now, especially with Elite Barbarians running rampant. I think that Dark Prince just has a very, very healthy spot inside the meta. Very good card. I'm going to say the Night Witch is being seen not just in Golem decks, but also in a lot of Electro Giant decks right now inside the meta. I think that Night Witch is above average, but I can't put her at really good because, again, she spawns bats, and what did we just say about bats? She's the favorite kind of fuel for the Mother Witch, and that can be a very, very bad scenario. Earthquake, I think it's above average, it's just not as in the meta as it once was, but I still think it's one of the better spells in the game, does more sheer damage than a fireball to towers. The Electro Giant is slightly above average, or Electro Dragon, excuse me, is slightly above average. The Electro Giant is actually really good. This is the era of beatdown right now. This is the meta of beatdown right now. You guys can see it. There's Cannon Cart, there's Golem, there's Dark Prince, Electro Giant. Very, very good card right now. Electro Giant went from being one of the worst win conditions to one of the best win conditions in the game. The Electro Spirit, on the other hand, is just average, maybe even bad. Really not seeing the same type of use cases that the other spirits are necessarily seeing. Actually, all the spirits, now that I think about it, have seen better days. The Electro Wizard is really good right now. Still boasts one of the higher win rates for 4 elixir kind of range defense cards. Very, very good. The Elixir Golem is bad right now. Some of you guys are going to disagree with me, but he has, I think, the worst win rate or the second worst win rates on ladder. That's pretty crazy. I think that people who are not incredibly skilled who pick up the Elixir Golem are going to lose way more than they win because people are generally too aggressive with the Elixir Golem. They give their opponent way too much elixir in exchange after its death, and they can't defend and they can't mount a comeback. So Elixir Golem right now inside the game goes right next to Battle Healer as being bad. I think that the Executioner is just average right now. Could see a small buff to him. I think that the Firecracker, though, is above average. Actually, might even be really, I'm going to put really good. Firecracker's a really, really good card. Really annoying to go against as well. Can almost always bait out a spell, even sometimes Fireball or Poisons. That's how annoying the card is for a negative elixir trade. Fireball is really good as well right now. We're seeing a lot less Poison, a lot more Fireball, namely because of cards like the Mother Witch. The Goblin Hut is above average right now, being used, the number one spawner in the game, essentially, aside from the Mother Witch, if you include her as a spawner. But the number one spawner building is the Goblin Hut. It's in a good place right now. I think the Furnace is just average right now. Some people would say it's bad. I think it's average. You do see it inside a few meta kind of spawner type decks, and it can be annoying to go against. I don't think it needs a buff or anything, even though I know a lot of people do. Fire Spirits, however, it's weird because how do you buff the fire? How do you not buff the Furnace while buffing the Fire Spirits? I think Fire Spirits should really be a 1 elixir card, or just be reworked to be a 1 elixir spirit like the other spirits Heal and Electro are in the game. Either way, it's just not super good right now. However, you can have some use cases, just like every other card here on this bad tier list. You can have some positive use cases with it, and it's generally a faster cycle card too, so not the worst card in the game, but I'd say it's generally pretty bad, especially if you read anything into the win rates, which are one of the worst in the game. Fisherman, I think, is still above average, a really solid card. I still think I like how it can stop the charges of princes, and it's just generally good for activating King Tower, even though the Hog isn't super popular in the meta, but of course it can activate against beatdown targets as well. Flying Machine is above average as well, a very, very nice air unit inside the game. Let me scroll up a little bit here. Always going to be baiting out a lot of fireballs, similar to Magic Archer. I mean, not as good as Magic Archer, but still going to bait out a lot of spells with the Flying Machine because it's tough to deal with. Freeze right now is just average. I think that Freeze, you remember your wins with Freeze. You remember when you take the tower down, but you generally forget about all the times that you use Freeze and you don't get any tower damage, and you lose yourself the match because you just wasted 4 elixir. So I think it's just an average card. Royal Ghost, I think, is above average, good, decent against elite barbarians, decent against swarm units. I think it's slightly above average right now inside the game. I do think the Giant Skeleton is bad right now inside the game. I think the Giant Skeleton, that rework ended up being more of a nerf to the card, unfortunately. So I would like to see another rework of Giant Skeleton. Hey, maybe even put a bomber in his knapsack or in his bomb barrel or whatever he has on his back, his backpack. Put a bomber in there. That would make him really, really cool. Help him get to the tower because you have that splash damage helping him out. Might have to increase his elixir cost to 7 if you were to do that, though, but I think it's pretty good. I think it'd be pretty cool. I think that the Spirit Goblins are above average right now. Really, really good 2 elixir card. Baits out small spells. Can put pressure at the bridge. Just a good, solid card. Air targeting for 2 elixir. You can't really go wrong right now. The Goblin Barrel is also above average. Bait is not in the worst worst spot, not in the best spot it's ever been either, but I think that it's a, you know, viable win condition, certainly, definitely above average card. I think that the Goblin Cage is above average right now. One of the better structures in the game, one of the better defensive units, and then you get a pretty awesome Goblin Brawler after it dies that has to be responded to. Very, very good card right now, being played quite a bit, especially competitively too. And, you know, this list isn't made to be just pro players. It's made to be everybody, everywhere in the game. However, you can read into the decisions sometimes that pros are making. We see a lot of Goblin Cage being selected by those players. Goblin Gang, I'm going to say, again, slightly above average. It's never really fallen out of the meta, but it's seen better days as well. Seeing other options. A lot of people are ditching the Goblin Gang and going with just Spear Goblins. So that's an option as well. I think that the Goblin Giant is slightly above average, still seeing him in a couple meta decks. We see Goblin Giant Double Prince, we see Goblin Giant Sparky as well. Goblins, I do think, are kind of bad right now. With all the Mother Witch going around, I'm going to stop saying it, but bar barrels everywhere, more swarm spells, more responses to swarm being played everywhere. I do think that goblins need a buff, believe it or not. Do you guys agree or disagree with me on goblins? The Graveyard. So Graveyard right now would be really good if not Mother Witch, would be average if not for Poison taking a big dip to Fireball, so it stays at above average, right in the middle. And I really made all the points that I want to make on that card. Mother Witch is one of the best counters to Graveyard, and Mother Witch is everywhere right now, so that keeps Graveyard in check. And, you know, on the other side of that coin, we're seeing a lot more Fireball than Poison to answer the Mother Witch, which is a good thing for Graveyard. So there's definitely quite a few Graveyard meta decks. It's a solid win condition. I would say it's above average. Heal Spirit, I would say, is average right now inside the game. Of course, Heal Spirit, Elixir Golem decks, we're not really seeing too many of those anymore, but Heal Spirit is really good in Royal Recruit and Royal Hog decks, which are really hot right now. Time out! Ash from the future, guys. I want to go ahead and re-rank the Hog Rider because I was editing this video, I was taking another look at the stats, and I was like, dude, I'm way too low. I said that he is average to slightly above average originally. I actually think the Hog Rider is really good. The reason I said he was only average or slightly above average right now is because of all the Tornado and Goblin Cage going around sometimes in the same deck, and the win rates are pretty low, but the win rates are brought down a lot by people just starting out the game who use Hog Rider, right? And it's still being used in almost 1/5 of matches and on top ladder as well. So I think the Hog Rider, especially right now with Hog Earthquake coming kind of back into the meta, we see Ian like top 5 today with that deck. A lot of top players and a lot of mid-ladder success with Hog Rider as well. I think it's just the low kind of new players, again, bringing those win rates down. That's why we can't read too much into win rates with any of these cards, including as well the Mega Knight. So guys, back to the regular video last night. Hunter, I think he's above average, air targeting card. He's seen better days because, again, he doesn't do a great job at countering necessarily elite barbarians, doesn't do an amazing job at countering the Electro Giant, obviously, so that's what keeps him out of the really good tier, which he was for a while before this meta kind of evolved. I do think that the Elixir Golem is really, really good. I've always felt like this is an underrated card, good for kiting. Only 2 Elixir, you get that Ice Vortex on death. You can get a lot of utility out of the Elixir Golem. I think he's really, really solid card, especially after the Knight nerf. Knight's still solid, but I think the Elixir Golem's right back in the meta, and I'm actually going to put him at really good. Ice Wizard, really good. One of the best defensive cards in the game right now. Inferno Dragon, we're going to put it above average. It's still widely used, widely seen. Healthy win rates, healthy use rates. However, again, with the Electro Giant and Tornado combination, you know, some matchups you're just going to be screwed with if you have the Electro, what is it called? Not Electro, Inferno Dragon as your only defensive card. Knight, I think, is really good right now. 3 Elixir to get that tanky of a unit. I think he's still an incredibly good option out there. Lava Hound is really good, one of the best win conditions along with Golem right now. As I said, this is the season of beatdown. You guys can see it right here on the charts. Lightning is also really good. I think that Lightning and Fireball are the 2 best big spells right now. Seeing Lightning because, well, there's a lot of Tesla, there's a lot of Mother Witch, there's a lot of range support units, and of course, there's a lot of structures. So getting these tanks to the towers is proven, useful to have a Lightning in your deck. The Magic Archer, again, really good. Magic Archer is doing very, very well right now inside the meta. One of the best cards inside the meta. One of the best support cards for 4 Elixir inside the meta, right next to the Electro Wizard. The Mega Knight, I'm going to say he's above average right now. I know a lot of people think he's really good or even OP, and I think that's a fair opinion to have. But here's the thing with the Mega Knight. A lot of people either don't know how to use him or play him incorrectly, or I don't know what the issue is, because he has very bad win rates. It's hard to say that a card with very bad win rates, both in challenges and inside ladder, top 1,000 ladder, top 10,000 ladder, and then all of ladder, no matter where you look, his use rates are relatively high, but his win rates are low. Does that mean that a lot of bad players play Mega Knight? Perhaps. Should I hold that against the card? Perhaps not, but I'm still giving it above average. I still think it's above average card right now with the recruits, with the elite barbarians, with, I don't know, I'm talking myself into him being really good. You guys let me know your thoughts on Mega Knight. Do you think he's really good? Do you think he's above average? Or do you think he's bad or OP? Let me know. Mega Minion, I'm going to give an above average. Very, very good card right now. Actually, probably really good. Really, Mega Knight and the Mega Minion, you can make the case either way. Even with the low use rates, it's crazy because he counters like so much inside the meta, and there's not a ton of Pekka going around. You know, Pekka's like a 10% use rate. I don't know. I'll move him up to really good. I think he's really good, even though he's really low use rate, win rates. It's weird. Miner's also really good inside the game right now. Miner in a bunch of different archetypes, bunch of different decks. Miner, to me, for the most part, has always been really good inside the game. Sometimes S tier. I think that the Minion Horde is bad right now. We'll just put it in the front here. I think the Minion Horde is bad right now for 5 elixir. I mean, every deck, it seems like, has plenty of responses, whether it's Ice Wizard, whether it's Mother Witch, whether it's Tornado, Fireball. I feel like there's multiple responses for a 5 elixir investment at Minion Horde that can give your opponent a positive elixir advantage. With Minions, I think that they're maybe even above average or maybe just average. I'll go above average. I think that Minions are a fine card for 3 elixir because the investment is not the same as Minion Horde. So for 3 elixir, if they use a Fireball, you're happy with that. You pick up 1 elixir off that exchange. Mini Pekka, I think, is above average right now. Very good card, very good tank killer. However, again, with Elite Barbarians being S tier, it really pushes all the kind of DPS ground units a little bit down. That's why I put them at above average instead of really good. I'm gonna say the same thing in the same kind of rationale for the Prince, right? Prince is a decent card, above average. Above average is above average, right? Like, that's not a slight at any of these cards. Mirror is still bad. It's a niche card that, truthfully, you know, it's a niche card. It's a niche card. It's a bad card. It needs to be reworked, in my opinion. Let me know your Mirror rework idea. And only our 3rd OP card in the game, it's the Mother Witch. I mean, I felt like we talked about Mother Witch this entire video so far. So need I say more? Probably not, right? Musketeer is above. I mean, she's just really good. She's really good. She needs a very subtle nerf, I think. I want her to be good. She's a legendary card. She ought to be good. She not ought to be trash. But she's defining the meta, as we've spoken about her so much on all of these cards. Similar to all 3 of these cards. Let me know if you agree with all 3 of these cards being S tier or OP inside the game. Next up is going to be Pekka. Oh, Musketeer I put above average. I think that Musketeer is being outshined very slightly by Ewiz and by the Magic Archer right now, but she's still an incredibly good card. She's, you know, again, one of those OG, always there when you need her cards, dependable, very, very good. But I think it's just slightly below the other 2 legendaries, just my opinion. Pekka is above average. Again, with all of this beatdown going around right now, the game, Pekka's seeing a slight uptick in her use rate and her win rates. She's still not that high, but a good counter to a lot of these cards in our really good category. So I think that Pekka is definitely above average right now. The only downside is Pekka falls very, very big victim to the Tesla, which is one of the most popular cards in the game right now, right? So that's what holds her to just being above average. Poison right now is in the above average category. It's still a good spell, but again, I can't put it in the same tier as Fireball and as Lightning because of all the beatdown utilizing it, and of course because of the anti-Mother Witch. Everybody wants Fireball in their deck. Fireball more effective against Elite Barbarians as well, obviously, than a slow burning Poison. Princess is above average right now, kind of with all the bait cards. Same thing with Lumberjack. We'll put him right next to the Mini Pekka. Lumberjack really popular in kind of a couple of versions of Bridge Spam and in Golem right now. Actually, because of Golem, And because of him being used a lot with the Ram Rider now, and Balloon, I think he's maybe a slightly better option right now than the Mini Pekka. And Mini Pekka has been better than him for a long time. So I'll go ahead and make that change. I think that Rage right now is average. It's a use case situation. If you have the right deck, you can get good benefits out of the Rage spell. It's only 2 elixirs, so it's easier to cycle as well. And if you can get creative, you can even use Rage on your own tower, you know, to get more out of your princess towers as well. So it's nice to see that. I think that Ram Rider is above average right now inside the game. We're seeing Ram Rider definitely creep back into the meta in a big way. So I'm happy to kind of up-rank her from average to above average, where I think she would have been in the last meta. Rascals are above average again. I think they're a slightly underrated card. Rocket is, I would say, average right now. We're seeing way more Lightning than Rocket right now inside the game. Even a lot of bait decks are moving away from Rocket right now inside the game. So I think that Rocket is average right now. It doesn't need a buff, doesn't need a nerf. Royal Giant is still really good inside this game. It's still a solid win condition. It's still being used by pro players top ladder and mid ladder with decent win rates as well. So a card with decent use and win rates tells me that it's really good, and it seems like it's still really good inside the game. Royal Giant. Royal Hogs, really good for sure inside the game. Same thing with Royal Recruits. Royal Recruits and Royal Hogs right now kind of go together, but this pair is very, very popular inside the game right now. You guys probably know the decks I'm referring to, but a lot of people leaning on these cards heavily right now. It's crazy to see the Royal Recruits be an A-tier card in the game, but I truly do believe they are. Skeleton Barrel, I'll put it in the above average category. Skeleton Barrel is a really solid card in my opinion. I think it's one of the more fun bait cards to play. Synergizes well with the few clone decks that are going around inside the game as well. Skeleton Dragons are above average, not broken, a better fit for air decks than ground decks we found. So you see mostly Skeleton Dragon being played in Lava Hound decks. Skarmy right now is average or bad. I'm going to give it average, but really you could make the case bad. Really, the last thing that you want, the number one thing you want to see as a player of Mother Witch is a Skarmy deck, right? So we'll put them in the average, but you can make the case they're pretty bad right now as well. But you can get a lot of utility for 3 elixir out of them as well if the opponent doesn't have their necessary counter in hand. So that's why we keep them in the average versus the bad category. Skeletons are above average. You know, 1 elixir cycle card, same thing with the Ice Spirit. They're not OP right now in the game. They're not as strong as they've been in the past, but they're really, really good, right? Guards, I'm going to put in just average. You can make the case that they're also in the bad category. I like that they have shields, but shields right now are not as necessary as they were in the past when Prince was running everywhere inside the meta. They're pretty decent against Elite Barbarians, even though Elite Barbarians, you'd be surprised, can still make really quick toast out of any guards out there. But again, most importantly, it's Mother Witch keeping them in check from being above average. Snowball, I do think is really good. Snowball is a really good card right now. I think it's an underrated card right now inside the game. You know, especially removing the knockback effect from Royal Delivery. I felt like a nice kind of 2 elixir option is the Snowball. Log is still really good inside the game as well. You can't tell me anything other than that. 3 Musketeers are they're now in the above average category. Some might say they even jumped into the really good A tier category. I still say B tier. They've come a long way from being very bad in the D tier for a long time. I think the buff did a good job at appropriately balancing 3 Musketeers. They're not OP, but they're not that bad anymore. Tombstone. Tombstone's going to go right in the bad category. You're almost seeing no Tombstone right now inside the game, and it's for good reason. Tombstone is an invitation to build up a huge beatdown push, like say a Sparky same lane, or of course, Mother Witch. We'll say it 1 or 2 more times, I'm sure. Mother Witch really struggles against Tombstone. We're seeing a lot of Lava Hound players move away from the Tombstone because of this. Tornado. I'm tempted to go S tier with Tornado. I think I'm going to. Believe it or not, guys, I'm sure I'm going to get a lot of disagreements on this one, but Tornado is S tier in my opinion. It's still a revolutionary card that changes the game. It has so many amazing key dynamics. King Tower activations are the easiest to pull off against so many units in the game, utilizing the Tornado. Tornado synergizes with so many cards, including now the Electro Giant as well, to really kill everything in its path. I think the Tornado is the strongest spell inside the game right now. And I don't know if I'm going out too far on a limb and saying that, just my opinion. Really good is the Valkyrie. Valkyrie's a very good response to elite barbarians, to anything swarm inside the game. If you don't have Mega Knight, you might be running Valkyrie because she's really hasn't been better than where she is right now in a long time, maybe ever inside the game. Wall breakers are still really good. They're still a very popular win condition to play alongside the mire or as a secondary win condition inside the game. I think they're a really good card. Wizard is just average. People will say that the Wizard is OP. I know that I've received quite a few messages after our Broken podcast telling me that Wizard is indeed OP, but again, I respectfully disagree. The win rates are bad. The use rates are bad. I mean, are we only talking in the lower ranges of ladder? Does anybody get scared when they see a Wizard? Maybe they do. Maybe I'm wrong. That's why I'm giving it average. Based on all your feedback, I'm not putting him in the bad category. However, I'm very tempted to do so. Gonna put him in average. I think that he's just an average card at best, personally. Sparky is above average right now. Zappies, which is the next card we'll talk about, are kind of everywhere. They're not a perfect counter because of range to Sparky, but with E-Wiz being very popular, with of course Electro Giant being very popular, Sparky went from, in my opinion, being really good about maybe 6 months to a year ago to now just slightly above average. Maybe could even make the case that it's one of the, more struggling legendary cards in the average category. I'll give it above average because I've always had a soft spot for Sparky, namely because I still panic every time I see her going against me in a battle. Zappies are really good, believe it or not, guys. If you're not on the Zappy bandwagon, maybe I can make you a believer. But yeah, Zappies are being played in a lot of meta decks right now. Zappies, similar to Tesla, just do a good job at kind of stun locking and doing a lot of damage. Just a really nice defensive option for you guys against all this beatdown going around. Traditionally, Zappies do very well against beatdown, generally speaking. So, and they're good at spell bait as well. Zap and arrows, oh man. They're either above, I'm going to put them both at above average. I feel like we've been very, very generous on a lot of these spells. Zappies and and arrows are above average. However, I do think that cards like Log, Snowball, and Royal Delivery offer a little bit more utility for an extra elixir in the sense of Royal Delivery, not versus arrows, but versus Zap. I don't know, I'm going to put Zap in really good too. Nice to have a reset in there, but are resets that necessary right now? There's not that much Inferno Tower even going around. I don't know. I'm really wavering on arrows being really good or above average. I think I'm going to move them back. I think I was right the first time. Just because of less Inferno Tower, less Sparky, less Inferno Dragon, and with the Electro Giant and with Lightning being popular in the meta, I feel like there's a lot of kind of responses. Even cards like Royal Recruits, Zap less effective, Royal Delivery arrows more effective. I don't know. I think even arrows over Zap, you could probably make a better case for really good. Either way, both cards are definitely above average. And last but not least is the Giant. Giant is safely going to go in the B tier, above average, but he's seen better days. Guys, that's going to do it for the tier list. Let me know. Let me have it in the comments. I guarantee you guys disagree with about half of the cards on this list because you always do in tier card ranking videos. Guys, let me know what I got right. Let me know what I got wrong in the comments below. Big shout out to GFUEL, the Bren Chong, and to Stutts Royale, my partners here on the channel. Check out their information in the show notes below. Thank you for watching, and as always, take care, guys.